This is the person who never sees the good in you, only your flaws. They disguise their negativity as honesty or constructive feedback, but in reality, they're driven by insecurity and control. If you don't set firm boundaries, their constant judgment will erode your confidence and stunt your growth. The chronic critic is the person who will always find something wrong with you, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you give. They wear the mask of helpfulness, as if their endless observations and corrections are for your own good. But deep down, their criticism is a reflection of their own unresolved insecurities. They look at you and see all the places they feel lacking in themselves, and rather than facing that emptiness, they project it onto you. You could accomplish something extraordinary, land the promotion you've been working toward for years, start the business you dreamed of, change your life in ways that take enormous courage, and yet, in their eyes, it's never enough. They'll tell you how you could have done it differently, how you should have waited, how you probably just got lucky. If you listen too long, their voice becomes the background music in your mind, that persistent whisper reminding you that you're unworthy, unfit, unworthy. These critics aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they're quiet observers who deliver their verdict in small, measured doses. A sigh when you share good news, a raised eyebrow when you describe a plan, a single sentence that cuts deeper than any argument ever could. Over time, these moments accumulate like grains of sand, wearing down your sense of self until you start to question your instincts. You begin to believe that maybe you really are inadequate. Maybe you really do fall short. That is how they maintain control, by shrinking your confidence so you'll never risk stepping beyond their judgment. You have to understand, the chronic critic has no intention of celebrating you. Their role in your life is to keep you tethered to doubt, because that's where they feel most comfortable. They thrive when you stay small, when you second-guess yourself, when you lower your expectation. And if you're not vigilant, you'll find yourself tailoring your dreams to fit inside their narrow vision of who you're allowed to be. But you don't need their approval to validate your worth. You don't need their commentary to define your potential. The truth is, nobody who truly loves you will systematically dismantle your spirit. Real support doesn't come wrapped in constant nitpicking or commonplace nicety. It doesn't look like relentless nitpicking. It looks like encouragement when you're afraid, and honest feedback when you ask for it, not as a weapon, but as a gift. When you decide to remove the chronic critic from your life, you're not being unkind. You're being responsible for your own well-being. You're choosing to protect the fragile beginnings of your dreams before they're crushed under the weight of someone else's bitterness. You're deciding that your future matters more than their opinion, and that's how you reclaim your power, by refusing to let their voice be louder than your own. The manipulative victim is one of the most exhausting people you will ever encounter, because they have perfected the art of appearing helpless. At first, you might feel drawn to them out of genuine compassion. You see their struggles, you hear their stories of betrayal, disappointment, and hardship, and you can't help but want to help. That's exactly what they count on. They lean on your empathy, knowing you'll show up again and again to rescue them from their own patterns. But over time, you start to realize something unsettling. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. No matter how many problems you solve, more problems appear. And when you finally get tired, when you set even the smallest boundary, you instantly become the villain in their story. These individuals are masterful at shifting blame. If something goes wrong, it's always because someone else failed them or hurt them or misunderstood them. They are allergic to accountability. And when you try to encourage them to take ownership of their choices, you're met with tears, guilt trips, or sudden coldness designed to punish you for stepping out of the rescuer role. That's the cycle they create. A constant crisis followed by a plea for help, followed by a refusal to change. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years pouring your time, money, and energy into a black hole that never fills up. The most dangerous part is that their victimhood doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and subtle. Sometimes it sounds like, "I just don't know what I'd do without you," or "no one else ever understands me." These words can feel flattering at first, like proof that you matter, but they're actually chains designed to keep you bound to their dysfunction. The moment you try to pull back, you're made to feel like you're abandoning them. You're made to question your integrity, your kindness, your very identity as a caring person. And that is how they keep you hooked, by confusing your compassion with obligation. Eventually, you have to make a choice. You can keep trying to save someone who has no intention of saving themselves, or you can step away and let them face the consequences of their own choices. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop sacrificing yourself on the altar of their perpetual crisis. You realize that helping someone doesn't mean destroying yourself in the process. You understand that no amount of rescuing will heal a person who is committed to staying broken because their suffering has become their identity. When you walk away from the manipulative victim, you reclaim your energy. You reclaim your clarity. You free yourself to invest in relationships that are reciprocal and healthy. And you finally learn the difference between compassion and self-betrayal. The envious underminer is often the last person you expect. They can stand right beside you, nodding and clapping when you win, all while secretly hoping you fail. They wear the disguise of a friend, a supportive colleague, or even a loving family member, but underneath that surface is a resentment that grows every time you rise a little higher. They don't come at you with open hostility. That would be too obvious. Instead, they chip away at your confidence in ways so subtle you might not even notice it happening at first. A little jab about how you probably just got lucky, a casual remark that your success isn't as impressive as you think, a reminder that someone else has already done what you're doing, only better. These small cuts can feel harmless in isolation, but over time, they leave you second-guessing yourself. You start to wonder if you're being arrogant for feeling proud. You question whether your accomplishments are legitimate. And that's exactly the effect the envious underminer is hoping for, because if they can keep you doubting, they don't have to face their own feelings of inadequacy. Your self-doubt becomes the balm that soothes their envy. Sometimes they'll even go out of their way to insert themselves into your plans just to gather ammunition. They'll act interested in what you're building, also they can later remind you of every flaw and limitation. And if you're not paying attention, you'll find yourself shrinking your dreams to avoid triggering their jealousy. You'll start playing small so you don't have to feel their silent disapproval, but you are not responsible for their insecurities. You are not required to dim your light to keep someone else comfortable in their darkness. When you begin to distance yourself, you'll often see their true colors emerge. The warmth disappears. The subtle digs become sharper. They may even try to turn others against you to maintain the illusion that you, the control freak, is the person who believes they have the right to dictate the terms of your life. They may not always shout or command. Sometimes their control shows up in quieter ways, subtle manipulation, persistent advice that sounds helpful but always has a hidden agenda, constant monitoring of what you say and do. At first, it can feel like they care about you, like they're invested in your success or your safety. They might tell you they just want what's best. But the truth is, they're only comfortable when you're moving within the narrow path they've laid out for you. If you take a step outside that path, even in pursuit of something good, they will find a way to pull you back. This person thrives on predictability because unpredictability threatens their sense of power. Your independence challenges their control. So every time you grow, they respond with pressure. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's criticism, maybe it's a sudden withdrawal of affection designed to make you feel like you've betrayed them. And over time, you start to believe that your own desires are dangerous. You start to think you can't trust your instincts without their approval. That's how the control freak keeps you contained, by convincing you that your freedom is reckless, selfish, or ungrateful. Sometimes their control can look like generosity, like doing everything for you so you never learn how to stand on your own. They'll offer money, time, resources, all while keeping careful score. Other times, it looks like constant correction, telling you how to dress, how to spend your money, who to love, and what dreams are realistic. They'll call it guidance, but if you look closely, it's about ownership. Because if you can be shaped into their ideal, they never have to confront the fact that you were never meant to belong to them. You don't owe anyone your obedience just because they've convinced you it's the price of love. Real love doesn't require submission. Real love doesn't feel like you're being squeezed into someone else's mold. It feels like space, room to make mistakes, room to grow, room to become who you were created to be. And if someone can't tolerate your growth, if they can't respect your choices, it's because they value control more than connection. Choosing to remove a control freak from your life is not a betrayal. But what if there is no room for you? It's not the room for control or comfort. Room for comfort in pain and pain. It's about room to feel, to be, to own. It's an act of self-respect. It's the recognition that your purpose cannot be fulfilled under someone else's thumb. And when you finally step away, you discover that your voice, your vision, your identity have been there all along, quietly, waiting for you to reclaim them. And when you finally step away, you reclaim fully the voice and the I that has always since been there along. It's the recognition that your voice, your vision, your identity have been there all along, quietly waiting for you to reclaim them. Unless you reclaim the energy vampire is the person who never seems to have anything good to say, whose very presence feels like a weight pressing down on your spirit. They live in a constant state of crisis, and somehow, every time you cross their path, you become part of the emergency. If you're not careful, you'll find that your days start to revolve around managing their chaos, One minute they need you to listen to their endless complaints, and the next they expect you to fix problems they created. At first, you might convince yourself that you're just being a good friend, a supportive partner, a caring relative. But eventually, you begin to see the pattern. The way your energy seems to vanish whenever they come around, the way your own priorities get buried under the weight of their needs. These people thrive on attention, no matter what form it takes. Even if you only listen out of politeness, even if you try to set gentle limits, they will find a way to pull you back into their orbit. If you try to set gentle limits, they will find a way to pull you back into their orbit. If you ever felt like you were pulled into their orbit, they will find a way to pull you back into their orbit. If you only listen out of politeness, even if you try to set gentle limits, they will find a way to pull you back into their orbit. If you only listen out of politeness, even if you try to, they'll use guilt, sympathy, or even flattery to keep you engaged. And when you try to step away, they will insist that you're selfish, uncaring, or disloyal. Because to them, your energy is their fuel, and the idea of you conserving it for yourself feels like a threat. What makes the energy vampire especially challenging is that they often blur the line between genuine hardship and self-created drama. Sometimes they truly are going through something difficult, and your compassion is needed. But the difference is that a person who respects you will appreciate your support without expecting you to sacrifice your peace. The energy vampire, on the other hand, will make you feel like it's your duty to absorb every frustration, every crisis, every disappointment they encounter. And when you finally have nothing left to give, they'll move on to someone else who can fill the void. You start to notice the impact in small ways. You feel drained after every conversation. You find yourself dreading their phone calls or messages. You look for excuses to avoid spending time together because you know you'll walk away feeling depleted. That's not what healthy connection looks like. Healthy relationships replenish you. They make you feel stronger, not weaker. They leave you with more clarity, not confusion. There comes a point when you must decide that your well-being matters more than their demands. You have to accept that you are not responsible for keeping their world from falling apart. You are not obligated to sacrifice your mental, emotional, or spiritual health to satisfy someone who refuses to take responsibility for their own life. When you step back from the energy vampire, you create space for peace to return. You protect the energy you need to fulfill your own purpose. And you remind yourself that you were never meant to be someone else's endless supply of strength. The passive-aggressive saboteur is the person who will never confront you directly, but will slowly poison your life with subtle hostility. They hide behind politeness and vague comments, always careful to keep just enough ambiguity that you question your own perception. When you accomplish something, they'll smile and say, "Must be nice," as though your success was handed to you without effort. When you share an idea, they'll nod but never offer support. Instead, they'll find quiet ways to suggest you're naive or unrealistic. Over time, their behavior leaves you feeling unsteady, unsure if you're imagining the negativity or if it's really there. That confusion is exactly what they count on, because as long as you're doubting yourself, you're less likely to call out the truth. What makes this type so damaging is that their tactics are almost invisible to everyone else. To the outside world, they might look gracious, even warm. They rarely explode or raise their voice, but behind closed doors, they're masters of the silent treatment, the backhanded compliment, the carefully timed withdrawal of support. They'll say something hurtful and follow it up with, "I'm just joking," or "You're too sensitive." And if you try to address it, they'll twist the situation so that you end up apologizing for daring to bring it up. This kind of manipulation erodes your sense of reality. It chips away at your confidence, because every time you try to trust your instincts, you're met with denial or deflection. You start to feel isolated, like nobody else sees what you see. And that's exactly how the passive-aggressive saboteur maintains control, by keeping you off balance, too exhausted to stand up for yourself. You don't have to prove to anyone that you're worthy of respect. You don't have to tolerate the slow erosion of your self-esteem just because someone is too cowardly to be honest about their resentment. People who value connection will communicate directly, even when it's uncomfortable. They will tell you when something isn't working, and they will listen when you share your own concerns. But the saboteur isn't interested in resolution. They thrive on tension because it gives them a sense of power without the risk of confrontation. Removing this person from your life may feel difficult at first, especially because they'll likely act shocked and wounded that you would distance yourself. But you are not obligated to stay in a relationship where respect is consistently undermined by veiled hostility. You deserve friendships and partnerships built on honesty, not on a constant undercurrent of bitterness. When you step away from the passive-aggressive saboteur, you reclaim the clarity you need to trust your own heart again. And in that space, you finally remember who you were before their shadows began to dim your light.